for archiving purposes, state your full name and spell it for us.
Okay. Wait a minute, I don't have to spell sister, do I?
No.
Okay.
No. But for archiving purposes, we do, even if it's Richard or Franklin or William, whatever the name is, we always spell it out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Go ahead.
My name is Sister Kathleen Carr, Kathleen
And also, what is your official title as it relates to your occupation or your school?
Okay. Should I also say I'm on the leadership team of the congregation?
I think you should say,
Yeah.
my official titles are.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
And then we'll pluck out the one that's applicable to how we use your interview.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
My official titles are, I'm the Vice Principal of St. James Catholic School in Miami. I am also the Faith Formation Director for St. James Catholic School and our partner school, Holy Family Catholic School. And I'm also a counselor, which is on the leadership team for the Sisters of St. Joseph of St. Augustine.
So tell me, just in a conversation, just tell me how you were introduced, when and where, how you were introduced to the Sisters of St. Joseph.
Well, can I tell you?
You give me whatever you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was first introduced to sisters. It was not the Sisters of St. Joseph when I was in first grade at St. Cecilia's School in Clearwater, Florida, when I was 6 years old. And that's when I had the sisters. Stop it a second.
That's okay. This is going to be good.
I'm trying to remember I don't remember. I don't know their official name because, when they were like the Holy, or just don't say it.
Right.
Or I'll just say I was
What
first
you said
introduced.
was good. I was first introduced to sisters, not the Sisters of St. Joseph.
Okay.
St. Cecilia. That's perfect.
So say it again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was first introduced to sisters, not the Sisters of St. Joseph, when I was 6 years old and entered first grade. And I was very enamored by sisters, and I loved my first grade teacher. And I remember very clearly one day coming home and telling my mom, as she was cooking dinner, Mom, I'm going to be a nun. And she kind of looks down at me and says, oh, honey, when I was a little girl like you, I wanted to be a nun too. But you'll grow out of that. So then I encountered the Sisters of St. Joseph when I moved from Clearwater to Stuart, Florida, where our sisters were at St. Joseph's School in Stuart. And my father actually worked with the Sisters of St. Joseph at St. Joseph's College, which later became sold to Florida Institute of Technology. But so I encountered the Sisters of St. Joseph when I was about in 5th grade. And when I was in 8th grade, really, again, this kind of call from the Lord continued. And I thought, oh no, I think I'm supposed to be a sister, but no, this isn't such a great idea. And went to Catholic school up to 8th grade, and then when it came time to graduate, the town where I lived in, there was no Catholic high school. And so I went to public school, and some of my Catholic school friends went there. And I'll never forget when I was like in 10th grade, and one of those when psychology was very popular back then, and self-knowledge. We're sitting in a circle, and the teacher said about 50 10th graders sitting in a circle, and the teacher said, you all can say whatever you want to anybody in this class. Express yourself. And a boy who was with me in Catholic school stands up and says, Kathy Carr, you're going to be a nun one day. Well, I turned bright red, as I so easily do. I said, well, he just shot all my dating opportunities. And so then, and it was like, almost like, how did he know that? And must have been something even when I was young. And then I encountered the sisters again when I was about in 10th grade, and started teaching CCD with Sister Jane Miller, God rest her soul. And that kind of started building more of a relationship with them again, and just started doing things with her, and we traveled to St. Augustine, but I was dating at the same time. So the prediction of me, let me stop.
Yep. Okay. So we left off with dating.
That was probably a good idea. Okay. So I encountered the Sisters of St. Joseph that were ministering in Stewart and in my parish and running the religious ed program. I got involved with that. Then the interest peaked again. So it peaked in 1st grade, 8th grade, again in 10th grade. God just kept nudging me, calling me. I felt called, but struggled with, did I really want to do this with my life? And at the same time, I was dating someone when I was in about 10th or 11th grade, and ended up falling in love with him and still struggling with the call to religious life. And finally he said to me one day, you know what, I'm not going to compete with God. Go get this out of your system. Kind of like my mom saying I was going to grow up one day. Get this out. And so I've never gotten it out of my system, and I'm grateful that I didn't. And I entered religious life when I was about 21 in 1977, so going on almost 40 years of religious life. And okay, I'll stop there
Yeah,
for.
we can stop there. That's great. Going back to when you were younger, describe for me what it was like. The sisters then were in
Traditional
full
habit.
habit,
Mhm.
right? Talk a little bit about what kind of impression that image had on you.
I don't know if it was I'm just kind of talking off the camera. I don't know if it was the image so much, but the way they were. So I'd rather talk about that.
That's fine.
Okay. When I was young, I think that like 6 years old, the way Sister was in the classroom, she was very loving, caring, patient, and I guess that attracted me. When I was very little, and grew up as a family, we never ever went to bed without saying our prayers at night. And it's interesting because we always said a Hail Mary, and then my mother had added this one little piece to the prayer. It was, "Sweet Jesus, let my heart be your home. Guardian angel in heaven so bright, make us be good children and always do what's right." I guess when you grow up with a family of 13, my mom would make sure that we behaved. And then I always shock the children here when I say, you know what, I have a secret. When I was a little girl, I didn't like to pray. But before we went to bed at night, we had to say this, "Sweet Jesus, let my heart be your home." And then God bless Mom and Dad. And then name my brothers and sisters. So it's God bless Mom and Dad, Maureen and Michael, Tommy and Joel, Debbie, Kevin, Sheila, Kathy, Angela, Beth, Monica, Bernadette, and Charlie. But because I didn't like to pray too much, I would say, "God bless Mom and Dad, Maureen, Michael, Tommy, Joel, Debbie, Kevin, Sheila, Kathy, Angela, Beth, Monica, Bernadette, and Charlie," and hop into bed. But my mother never let us go to bed without praying. Now, how does that relate to maybe a call to religious life? I often say that those words, "Sweet Jesus, let my heart be your home," formed me, probably formed my brothers and sisters who didn't become nuns or priests, but has been a very, very big part of my life. And for me, the attraction to consecrated life was that sweet Jesus is in my heart, and I am in his heart, and that the way of life of attracting me to religious life was a real fit for me.
Amazing.
And probably the only reason why I brought up the tears was, I'm not going to be on the camera, this one, was because when my mom died, my brothers who don't go to church said, "Everybody, let's gather around our coffin and say the night prayer." I'm like, they remember. All right, let me just.
That's great.
Anyway, But I teach that. I use it. Okay. That, let me do it again. Okay. The prayer, "Sweet Jesus, let my heart be your home," has become a mantra, for my meditation in my life. And the thing I think is kind of cool is I've taught it to all my hundreds of children. And they will, you'll hear them say sometimes, "Sister, I remember, sweet Jesus, let my heart be your home." And so that, even though I don't have my own biological children, I've certainly touched thousands of them. And as a teacher and as a religion teacher, and when I was principal too, one of my main goals in teaching even religion is to bring children to an experience of the Lord. And so I teach them to meditate. I teach them to find Jesus within, to find the silence within, to find God. Because, you see this environment that they live in can be so chaotic, so noisy. And I teach them a method that's called finding Jesus in their heart room. And, you can walk in an 8th grade class in total silence, meditating. I could, half the school, and the children love it. If they walk in the classroom and find the lights off, they know we're going to be guided to into their heart room. And it's that's always a beautiful experience, and that I feel that, yes, there's religion books and there's doxology and doctrine and all that we need to teach, but unless we're bringing our children to the Lord, the books don't matter. And so that's actually, I was principal here at one time, and that was one of my main reasons to step down and become vice principal, because I felt that I felt I needed to be in the classroom some. I'm not in that much, but I still teach the 8th grade religion and try and help them get to know Jesus.
Can you talk a little bit about vocation today, or transition that into how associates help sort of further the mission in any way, in any capacity, any way you want to talk about that?
Yeah. I definitely believe that many women and men are still called to the consecrated life. And I believe that we have a beautiful charism that will continue no matter what. An image that I have is that of, I can't remember the author's name. Anyway, I'll try and get it.
Okay.
I was sharing last night. An image that I have is that we plant the seeds of the trees for whose shade that we will not sit under. I find it very similar to sharing the story of my mom teaching me at a very young age to say, "Sweet Jesus, let my heart be your home." The lives that we touch every day, or maybe people that know us or don't know us, if God is calling women to enter our community, they will come. Yet I also think that the future of religious life, the future of our religious congregation, will look very different from the congregation that I entered in 1977, mainly because the numbers have diminished so much. But is it still a very vibrant life? Is it a life that, why am I still here? Why would I still encourage somebody to live the consecrated life? Because if you're called to that, that is what you're called to. One of the things that I tell children, that if God puts all the makings for you to be a rose you are to be. If God puts all the makings within you to be a lily, don't try to be a rose. And so when we have truly lived our vocation, then we really become who each of us are called to be. And one of the things too that we're involved in is up the Atlantic coast, is we're involved about 5 of us are in a group of women 62 and under who are Sisters of St. Joseph from 5 different congregations of Sisters of St. Joseph. It's called the Federation. They're like our cousins. And that has been very life-giving to many of us to be involved in that and how we can bring our thoughts and skills and gifts together to really reflect seriously and discern seriously what the future of the Sisters of St. Joseph throughout the world might be looking at, and to take those brave steps. I don't know.
Wow. That was great.
Do you know some of the brave steps that you've been, I mean, I think that's, I think that is a great, can you expound upon that a little bit? What are you kind of thinking about?
Recently, a few of us from our congregation have attended leadership conferences for women religious leadership programs. And I think one of the things that has struck me the most is that talking about how religious life today is on the in-between times. And it's kind of like the image of the trapeze artist. And he's got his hand on one bar and reaching out to the other until he lets go of, or she lets go of, this bar of what was, to leap into the future and grab what is next. And that the time that's being described that we're in now is between those 2 bars, which can be scary, which can be exciting, and it's total reliance on God, that as to what is next. And even when we all get together and talk about, what is religious life going to look like in the future, no one really has that answer but God. And we have to pray together and have a listening heart and continue to try and make the path that might not be there yet.
I'm really stuck in that.
Make the path that might not be there yet. That was a good statement.
And you don't know what that is, obviously, so it's a lot of prayer and being open to what's next.
Yep.
And seeing it when it's in front of you. I think
I didn't know what it was when I entered in 1977. Since I've entered this congregation, it's been in transition. It has always been, I'm post-Vatican II, so it doesn't frighten me. It's just a way of being. So the transition doesn't frighten me at all, because never has God let me down my whole life, and God is here today. He was there yesterday. He's going to be here tomorrow. So, I don't know what's going to happen when I walk out the door today. So, but we don't go at it blindly. We are making efforts to come together and try and pray and to make some decisions together. But it's going to take some deep discernment. I love the scripture of come out into deeper waters and cast your net on the other side. And that, I believe, is what we're called to do. And we've talked about it somewhat as a congregation. The group of 6 that are 62 and under that are meeting are beginning to use that image too. And when they cast the net on the other side, we just got to figure out what side we're supposed to cast it on. When they cast their net on the other side, they caught so many fish that they needed help from the partners in the other boat. And that, I love that image, and I think that's what it is for me with the involvement in the Federation. We can't go at this alone, and the nets are going to be heavy with new life. And who is it that our partners, whether it's associates, whether it's other Sisters of St. Joseph, whether it's other religious too. I attended a conference this summer, of leadership conference of women. It was very exciting, from all over the world, women religious, that are, all asking the same question. We spent 4 or 5 days together, almost in prayer and retreat together, with some guidance that was really beautiful on listening to the hearts that are beating, that are saying the same thing from Africa, from Germany, from the Philippines, so it's the question of, what is the future going to be? What is the legacy? What is next? And only God knows. But we keep walking and hanging in together.
But I want you to talk about how you continue to be intuitive to what the dear neighbors need. Like the dear neighbor at Holy Family needed you.
Mm-hmm.
How not just you here, but how the Sisters of St. Joseph and the new ministry that Sister Carolyn is starting, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
How you're continuing to search for ways in which to serve the dear neighbor based upon, what they need.
Mm-hmm. Well, how to know what dear neighbor to meet, to serve, to help when our numbers are dwindling. That's not really an issue at all, because the dear neighbor is in front of us all the time. The poor are in front of us all the time. I have ministered in the Haitian community for a number of years, for the past 18 here at St. James. And then recently, myself and the sisters have been invited to help bring leadership and our spirituality to a neighboring school, that I call it our Dear Neighbor School, Holy Family, to try and do some turnaround that we were able to do here. And I think what we brought here is some good leadership, but not just in academics, but in bringing our charism. I was principal here for, I think it was 11 years, and I started in 1998. And I think that a couple things that helped me in meeting the needs of the dear neighbor, that was very important to me, was I got to know every single child by name, which isn't always easy around here with their very unique names. And I knew their parents. And I think that, being in relationship with them, being able to call them by name, just as God calls each of us by name, and treat them individually as a special person, as unique and loved for who they are. I think that is the dear neighbor. And how to know what to meet it, I think it's the same as I don't know what's going to happen when I walk out the door. I may think I'm going to teach 8th grade, and then, I have a couple students that are in a homeless shelter, and that may derail me because Dad's is blind and is at dialysis that day, and the mom is mentally ill, and you may find me over at the uniform shop begging for uniforms, or running home to get a pair of socks for a child who doesn't have socks on that day. So meeting the needs of the dear neighbor, I don't think is very different from what our sisters did in the past. We did what lays before us, just like the Good Samaritan that we heard about in the gospel today. And what did he do? He stopped because that person was in need. Sometimes I can be accused of being a little ADD, because I can be on my way to do something, and a more pressing need will come across. And so how to meet the dear neighbor in the future, and different ministries that we're called to, I think, again, takes prayer and discernment, and literally just comes before us, and to be able to respond to that need. I'm trying to think of the name of this song. There's a song that was popular back in the 70s that called "Come With Me Into the Fields," and it says, your arms may grow weary and your shoes may wear thin, but come with me into the fields. And I'm a lover of shoes, so probably a long time before my shoes wear thin. But my arms do grow weary at times of carrying the burden sometimes of what the children that we minister to, that they have to encounter every day. The arms can grow weary, the heart can grow heavy, but I know God carries them and God carries me, and I don't do any of it alone. I would never, ever walk out of the house in the morning, and I tell the children this, without taking the time to meditate, to pray with community, to pray personally, and knowing that I personally may not have strength, may be very, very tired a particular day when meeting the needs can get rough, but I'm just an empty vessel, and God uses me. God's the water, God's the Spirit, and if I can get out of the way, then let the water flow, let the Spirit flow.
What haven't we talked about, sister, that you think the people out there want to know that they don't know?
I believe for me that my call to religious life, the image I use is a thirst for God, and for me the consecrated life has been a means towards being quenched. So that Psalm 42, as a deer that longs for running streams, so my soul longs for you, my God, has been a psalm that has grown in my heart, that has stayed in my heart, that has increased my thirst, that has increased my desire for the Lord. And I think as a religious, and for anyone interested in religious life and maybe has a similar thirst, to really to know that even though Coca-Cola advertises it's the real thing, that the living water of Jesus is the real thing. And when I was getting ready to profess my final vows, one of the requirements is that we have to go before the General Superior and the Council, and they get to ask us any questions that they want. So, of course, we're all knees knocking and very nervous about this. And, there's a few questions being asked, and there was this one sister, and she had a magazine in her hand, and she looked at me, and she says, "Kathy, you have so much going for you. Why are you doing this?" I thought that was a rather interesting question, from her. You could be this, you could be that. Why are you doing this? And I can remember just responding to her, said, "I'm in love." And it's a total love response to the Lord. And that's why I'm here. And she put down the magazine. She said, "I'm done." I have no more questions. And similarly, when my sister was dating someone and they were engaged, and one evening he came to pick her up, and he said, in fact, we were about the same age, and he said to me, he goes, "Kathy, why are you becoming a nun? You would make such a beautiful mother and a beautiful wife. Why are you doing this? I can even find you someone if you want." I said, "No, Bob, I'm good." And he said, just explain it to me." I said, "All right, I'll make a deal with you. You explain to me why you're in love with Beth and why you want to marry Beth, and then I'll explain next why I want to become a nun." He didn't say another word. My sister comes to me the next morning. "He didn't stop talking about you all night long. He's trying to understand this nun thing." I get it, but I don't. And so, if people could realize that the call to be totally united with the Lord in consecrated life is a love response. And if it's not, you can't live the life and be happy and healthy and joyful.
Say about that saying you showed me today, because that's one of your little sayings about joy.
Yeah, because it's joyful. When I was ready to profess my vows, my novice directors made me a little needlepoint piece of work here that she made. That is a saying from the Sisters of St. Joseph that describes the Sister of St. Joseph. The Sister of St. Joseph is called to be gentle, patient, hardworking, charitable, obedient, humble, but above all, simple and joyous. And when I opened this gift at home, and my blood sisters can be, how brothers and sisters can be, said to me, "You got the joyous down." You might need to work on gentle, patient, humble. So, so and another thing that I teach the children about joy was taught to me about a little girl who has Down syndrome. And she stopped me one day and she said, Sister Kathy, do you know the meaning of joy? So, well, I think I do. And she says, Joy. Jesus first, others second, and yourself last. And so I try to keep that motto in my life. And sometimes the shoes wear thin and the arms can grow weary. But I try to teach that to the children too. Jesus first, others next, and yourself last. And that is the true joy within.
One quick thing. Hold on to that. I need you to go through the motions one more time. You don't have to speak, but I need you to hold it up to the camera.
Okay.
This is B-roll
Okay.
for me.
Let me look at it.
Like you did earlier. And then from here, I know you put it to the side and you were reading it.
Okay.
So you can do that, just the way you did before.
Okay. Do I say it again? No.
And then you brought it back.
Oh.
And then you can bring it back center and put it on your lap.
Okay.
And that'll be fine.
And look up.
And that's all we need of that. Okay, one quick thing, because I may use little cuts, little bits and pieces of this in a segment. Describe for me you as a child, as a very young child. What kind of kid were you?
And tell them what
Brad.
number you were, and make sure you tell them you were number whatever in 13, or I was number whatever you were.
Okay.
Be honest.
Okay. I'm number 8 in a family of 13 children. I have 7 sisters and 5 brothers. And I always kind of amaze people when I say, I'm number 8, and the oldest in the family was 9 when I was born. That's amazing. That's a lot of children. So I was born into community. In fact, I have never lived in a local community as large as my family when we all lived together, and there were 15 of us. I was always a little helper at home. I would say that. Was I perfect? Absolutely not. I could be a little bratty, I guess, at times. I loved every one of my younger brothers and sisters. I loved it when my mother would come home with another baby. That was just my personality. I was always taking care of them. When the last was born, people laugh about this. My mom was still in the hospital. My dad brought home a picture of my baby brother, and I was about probably 8. And I went knocking door to door around the neighborhood. Didn't even know whose houses I was knocking on, to announce that my brother was born and would they like to see a picture of him. And, I was just, I guess in a way when I kind of look at this, I was spreading the good news then. Another car I was described when I was born, another car is on the assembly line. Because my last name being Carr. But I was playful. I went to Catholic school. I loved being taught by the sisters. We lived in Clearwater, and then we moved to a little town called San Antonio, Florida, where my father worked at the college there. We used to love to swim in the lake and be free. We actually had a horse and a pony, and so life was simple, much simpler then. My children at school are always very surprised that we have one TV. We had one TV, one black and white TV, and we had to get up and walk across the room to change the channel. What? So when we would fight and argue, one of the ways my mom handled it, she would say to us, you know what? You can argue all you want and you can fight, but I don't want to hear it, so go to your room and do it. So that transition of walking down the hall, we'd kind of look at each other and go, what are we doing this for? And that ended it. So my mom was a very holy, spiritual person, and was a big influence on my life, and very very loved. We're all unique in my family, very unique, and she loved us, each of us as we are, and had a good value in education. Made sure that we got good education, and anyway. And I played being nun, and I played being priest. You know, I did the Necco thing too, and with the candy. So anyway, played a lot of school, and anyway.